The ship was falling. Park Yuna held tight to her seat as the survey vessel shook and screamed. Red lights flashed everywhere. Alarms rang so loud she could feel them in her chest. Through the small window next to her, she saw fire. Orange and yellow flames wrapped around the ship as it fell through the sky of a planet she had never seen before. "Brace for impact," shouted Captain Vrelisk. His voice was calm, but Yuna could see his forearms gripping his command chair so hard that the metal was bending. Yuna closed her eyes. She thought about her mother. She thought about the small apartment in Seoul where she grew up. She thought about her grandmother's cooking, the smell of rice and soup in the morning. Strange thoughts for someone about to die, she knew. But the mind does strange things when it is scared. The ship hit the ground. The sound was terrible. Metal tore and bent. Glass broke. Something exploded at the back of the ship, and Yuna felt heat on her face. Then everything went quiet. For a long moment, nobody moved. Yuna opened her eyes slowly. She was alive. Her body hurt in many places, but she was alive. She looked around the cabin. The other crew members were starting to move too. Some were groaning. Some were crying. But they were moving. "Status report," said Captain Vrelisk. His voice was weaker now. One of his arms hung at a bad angle. "Engine room is destroyed," said Tolik, the engineer. He had 6 limbs, and right now all of them were shaking. "Both primary and backup systems are gone. Life support? Working. For now." "Communications?" Imsora, the communications officer, was pressing buttons on her console. Her scaled face showed no emotion, but her hands were trembling. "The emergency beacon is damaged. I can repair it, but it will take time. Maybe 2 days. And how long until rescue arrives after we send the signal?" Sora was quiet for a moment. 13 days, maybe 15. The cabin went silent. 15 days, on an unknown planet. With the destroyed ship, Yuna unbuckled her safety belt and stood up slowly. Her legs were weak, but they held her. She walked to the window and looked outside. The ship had crashed in some kind of swamp. Dark water surrounded them. Strange trees with long hanging branches grew everywhere. The sky was green, not blue. 2 small suns hung low on the horizon. "What about food?" asked Polen, the navigator. She was young, even younger than Yuna. Her large eyes were wet with tears. "What will we eat?" Dr. Haines's, the medical officer, checked her datapad. "The food synthesizer is destroyed. We have only the emergency rations." "How many?" 42 cubes. Todoan, the security officer, did the math quickly. He was a tall alien with gray skin and a face that never smiled. 12 crew members. 42 cubes. That is 3.5 cubes per person. Each cube provides nutrition for 1 standard day, said Dr. Haines's. So we have 3.5 days of food. And we need 15 days, whispered Polen. Nobody spoke. The truth was too heavy for words. They were going to starve. Even if the rescue ship came, they would be dead before it arrived. Yuna looked at the emergency ration cubes. She had eaten them during training. They were gray and hard and tasted like nothing. They kept you alive, but just barely. They were food for dying, not for living. She looked outside again. The swamp was dark and strange, but it was also alive. She could see things moving in the water. Small creatures jumped from branch to branch in the trees. Birds, or something like birds, flew across the green sky dot where there was life, there was food. Her grandmother had taught her that. "Captain," Yuna said. Her voice was quiet, but everyone heard her. "I would like to go outside." Vrelisk looked at her with his many eyes. "Outside? Why?" "To look for food. The planet is unknown. Everything could be poison, or everything could be safe. We will not know until we try." "It is too dangerous." Yuna shook her head. "Starving is also dangerous. More dangerous, I think. Dohan stepped forward. The human is right. We cannot just sit here and wait to die. I will go with her. Captain Vrelisk was quiet for a long time. He looked at his broken arm. He looked at his scared crew. He looked at the 42 gray cubes that were supposed to keep them alive for 15 days. Very well, he said finally. But be careful, both of you. Yuna nodded. She walked to the door of the ship and pressed the button to open it. Hot, wet air rushed inside. It smelled like plants and water and something sweet. It smelled like life. She stepped outside. Her boots sank into soft mud. Insects buzzed around her head. The sounds of the swamp were loud and strange. Clicks and calls and splashing water. Dohan followed her. He held a weapon in his hands, ready to shoot anything that attacked them. But Yuna was not looking for danger. She was looking for food. She walked to the edge of the water and knelt down. The mud was warm between her fingers. She looked into the dark water and waited. After a moment, she saw movement. Something was swimming near the surface. It was fat and slow, with many legs. It looked like a crayfish, but bigger. Yuna reached into the water. The creature did not swim away. It was not afraid of her. It had never seen a human before. It did not know that humans were the most dangerous thing in the galaxy. She grabbed it and pulled it out of the water. It wiggled in her hands but did not bite. She brought it close to her face and smelled it. It smelled like clean water and salt. It smelled like the crabs her grandmother used to buy at the market. She smiled. Dohan, she said, I need you to help me find a pot. The crew watched Yuna from inside the ship. They pressed their faces against the windows like children watching something strange and wonderful. And to them, it was strange. Very strange. The human was standing in the swamp water up to her knees. Her uniform was wet and covered in mud. Her hair was sticking to her face. She did not look like a scientist. She looked like something wild. What is she doing now? Asked Pelen. She is catching more of those creatures, said Tolik. His 6 eyes blinked in confusion. She has caught 7 of them already. Why so many? Surely one is enough to study. Dr. Haynes looked at her datapad. Her expression was troubled. I do not think she wants to study them. I think she wants to eat them. The crew went quiet. Eating wild creatures from an unknown planet was something no civilized species did. It was dangerous. It was primitive. It was something that only animals did. But Yuna did not care what they thought. She had more important things to worry about. She carried the creatures back to dry land and put them in a pile. They were still alive, still wiggling. She looked at them and felt something she had not felt since the crash. Hokdot Duhan stood nearby, watching her with his weapon ready. He did not understand what she was doing, but he had decided to trust her. The human had a look in her eyes that he recognized. It was the look of someone who knew exactly what they were doing. I need to make a fire, Yuna said. A fire? What is that? Yuna looked at him. Sometimes she forgot that not all species knew the things that humans knew. It is heat and light made from burning things. Wood, plants, anything that is dry. We have heating devices on the ship. The ship has no power for cooking. And these creatures need to be cooked. Cooked? Heated until they are safe to eat. Dohan thought about this. How will you make this fire? Yuna smiled. It was not a happy smile. It was the smile of someone about to do something very difficult. The old way, she said. She spent the next hour collecting dry sticks and dead plants. The swamp was wet, but she found enough dry material under the trees where the water did not reach. She built a small pile of the driest things she could find. Then she found 2 sticks and began to rub them together. Dohan watched in confusion. What are you doing? Making friction, heat. If I rub fast enough, the wood will get hot. Hot enough to make fire. That seems very slow. It is very slow. But it works. It took a long time. Yuna's arms hurt. Her hands were getting red and sore. But she did not stop. She could not stop. If she stopped, they would all die. Finally, after what felt like forever, she saw a tiny bit of smoke rising from the sticks. She blew on it gently, carefully. More smoke. Then a small orange flame appeared. "Fire," she whispered. She felt tears in her eyes, but she did not let them fall. She fed the flame with small, dry leaves. Then bigger sticks. Then larger pieces of wood. Soon she had a real fire burning in front of her. The heat felt wonderful on her wet skin. The crew came out of the ship one by one. They stood around the fire and stared at it like it was magic. "How did you learn to do that?" asked Captain Vrelisk. "Every human child learns this," said Yuna. "Or they used to a long time ago. My grandmother taught me when I was young. She said that a person who can make fire will never be helpless." She took one of the creatures and put it in a metal pot she had found in the ship's kitchen. It was meant for boiling water for medical purposes, but it would work for cooking too. She added water from the swamp, but only after Dr. Haynes tested it and said it was safe. "The water is actually very clean," the doctor said, sounding surprised. "Better than some city water supplies." Yuna nodded. She had expected this. The swamp looked dirty, but swamps were often very clean. The plants filtered the water naturally. She put the pot over the fire and waited. The water began to bubble and steam. The creature inside stopped moving. Its shell turned from dark green to bright red. "Is it dead?" asked Pauline, her voice small. "Yes, and now it is safe to eat." Yuna took the creature out of the water and cracked open its shell. Inside was white meat that smelled like the ocean. She pulled out a small piece and put it in her mouth. Everyone held their breath. Yuna chewed slowly. Her eyes went wide. Then she smiled, a real smile this time. "It is good," she said. "It tastes like crab." "Like home." "You ate it," said Tolek. His voice was full of shock. "You just ate it. Without testing it. Without analysis. Without anything." "Sometimes you have to trust your body," said Yuna. "Humans have been eating strange things for thousands of years. Our bodies know what is safe." She looked at the crew. They were all staring at her like she was crazy. Maybe she was. But crazy was better than dead. "Who wants to try?" she asked. Nobody moved. Yuna pulled out more meat from the creature and ate it. She made sounds of happiness as she chewed. "It is really good. Sweet and tender. My grandmother would have loved this." Finally, Captain Vrelisk stepped forward. He was the leader. If he did not show courage, nobody would. "Give me some," he said. Yuna handed him a piece of the white meat. He looked at it for a long moment. Then he put it in his mouth. His eyes widened. "This is—" He stopped. He chewed more. He swallowed. "This is better than anything from the food synthesizer. This is real food." One by one, the other crew members came forward. One by one, they tasted the meat. And one by one, their faces changed from fear to wonder. That night, Yuna cooked all 7 creatures. She added some leaves she had found that smelled like herbs. She added some roots that tasted like vegetables. She made a soup, thick and rich and full of flavor. The crew sat around the fire and ate together. Nobody talked. The food was too good for words. When the pot was empty, Sora spoke for the first time since the crash. "I thought we were going to die," she said softly. "I was so sure." Yuna put a hand on her shoulder. "We are not going to die. I will make sure of it." And looking at the empty pot and the satisfied faces of her crew, she knew she was telling the truth. 5 days had passed since the crash. The emergency beacon was working now, sending its signal into the darkness of space. Help was coming. But that was not the amazing thing. The amazing thing was what Yuna had done to their camp. The crash site had changed. It did not look like a disaster anymore. It looked like a home dot near the ship. Yuna had built a fire pit with stones from the nearby river. The stones were flat and smooth, and they kept the fire contained and safe. Next to the fire pit was a cooking area with pots and pans she had found in the ship. Some were meant for cooking. Some were meant for other things. But Yuna had made them all work. Behind the cooking area was a smoking rack. It was a simple thing, just wooden frames with thin sticks across them. But on those sticks hung strips of meat, drying in the smoke from a small fire below. The smoke would keep the meat safe to eat for many days, maybe weeks. Next to the smoking rack was a hole in the ground lined with large leaves. Yuna called it a cold pit. The ground was cooler than the air, and the leaves kept the food clean. Inside the pit were more creatures from the swamp, vegetables she had dug up, and fruit she had picked from the trees. She has built a food storage system, said Dr. Haynes, looking at her datapad. In 5 days, with no tools, no technology, nothing but her hands and her brain. Humans are very strange, said Tolek. Humans are very scary, said Pile NN. Captain Relisk said nothing. He just watched Yuna work and thought about how wrong he had been about humans. He had always thought they were weak, soft creatures who needed technology to survive. Now he knew the truth. Humans did not need technology. Technology needed them. Duhan had become Yuna's helper. At first, he had just wanted to protect her during her walks in the swamp. He was security officer. Protecting people was his job. But slowly, something had changed. He found himself interested in what she was doing. He asked questions. He watched carefully. He learned. Why do you cut the meat so thin? He asked one morning, watching her prepare strips of fish for the smoking rack. Thin meat dries faster, Yuna explained. And it smokes better. The smoke goes all the way through. And the smoke does what exactly? It keeps bad things from growing in the meat. Bacteria, mold, things that make food rot. The smoke kills them or keeps them away. Dawn nodded slowly. This made sense. It was science, just primitive science. Science from before machines and computers. Science from a time when survival depended on knowledge passed from parent to child. Your grandmother taught you this too? He asked. Yuna smiled. She always smiled when she talked about her grandmother. Yes, she grew up in a small village in the mountains. They had no refrigerators, no food synthesizers. They had to preserve food the old ways or starve in winter. What happened to her? She died 10 years ago. She was very old. I am sorry. Yuna shook her head. Do not be sorry. She lived a good life. And she taught me everything I know. She is still alive, in a way. Every time I cook, every time I preserve food, every time I feed people, she is with me. Dohan did not fully understand this, but he could see that it was important to Yuna. Humans had strange ideas about death and memory. But strange did not mean wrong. That evening, Yuna made something special. She had caught a large fish in the river, almost as long as her arm. She had cleaned it and cut it into pieces. Now she was preparing it in a way Dohan had never seen before. She rubbed the fish with salt. The salt came from a white rock she had found near the river. She had crushed the rock into powder and collected the salt from it. Then she rubbed the fish with herbs. She had found many plants that smelled good and tasted better. She did not know their names, so she gave them her own names. The one that smelled like pepper, she called pepper. The one that smelled like garlic, she called garlic. It did not matter that they were not really pepper or garlic. They did the same job. Why do you season the meat before cooking it? Dawn asked. Flavor, said Yuna. The salt and herbs go into the meat while it cooks. It tastes better than adding them after. And this matters? The taste? Yuna looked at him seriously. Taste matters more than anything. Food is not just fuel for the body. It is joy for the soul. Good food makes people happy. And happy people survive better than sad people. She cooked the fish over the fire. The smell was incredible. It filled the camp and made everyone's mouth water. Even crew members who were working on the ship stopped what they were doing and walked toward the fire. When the fish was ready, Yuna cut it into portions. But she did not just serve the fish. She also served small dishes on the side. Pickled vegetables, roasted roots, some kind of sauce made from fermented fruit. What are these small dishes? Asked Pelen. Banshin, said Yuna. In my country, we never eat just one thing. We eat many things together. Each dish has a different taste. Sweet, sour, salty, bitter. Together, they make a complete meal. The crew ate in silence. The fish was perfect. The banshin were strange but delicious. Every bite was a new discovery. When the meal was finished, Pelen did something unexpected. She started to cry. What is wrong? Asked Yuna, worried. Was the food bad? No, said Pelen through her tears. The food was perfect. That is why I am crying. I felt we were going to starve. I calculated our food supply 17 times. Every time, the answer was the same. We would die before rescue came. She looked at Yuna with her big, wet eyes. But you changed everything. You turned nothing into something. You turned death into life. How? How did you do it? Yuna thought about the question. It was a big question, bigger than it seemed. I did not do anything special, she said finally. I just did what humans have always done. We survive. We adapt. We find a way. It is what we are. She looked around at her crew, at their full bellies and grateful faces. And we take care of each other. That is the most important thing. We never give up on each other. That night, for the first time since the crash, everyone slept well. Their stomachs were full. Their hearts were light. And they knew, without any doubt, that they were going to survive. Day 12. 3 more days until rescue. Dr. Haynes was sitting in the medical bay of the damaged ship, staring at her datapad. Her face showed an expression that was very unusual for a medical officer. She looked confused. This is not possible, she said to herself. She checked the numbers again. She ran the scan again. The results were the same. Captain Vrelisk walked in. His broken arm was healing well in its cast. What is not possible? The crew health data, said Dr. Haynes. She turned the datapad so he could see. Look at this. Vrelisk looked. He did not understand medical data very well, but he could see that the lines on the graph were going up, not down. What does this mean? It means the crew has gained weight. Average increase of 3% body mass over 12 days. Is that bad? No, Captain. It is impossible. We are in a survival situation. We crashed on an unknown planet with almost no food. People should be losing weight. They should be weak and sick and scared. Instead, they are healthier than they were before the crash. Vrelisk thought about this. Then he smiled, which was rare for him. I think I know why. He walked out of the ship and looked at the camp. Yuna was there, as always. She was building something new. A structure made of mud and river clay and stones. It was round like a small house with an opening at the front. What is that? He asked. An oven, said Yuna. She was covered in mud and clay, but she looked happy. For baking? Baking? Cooking with hot air instead of direct fire. I can make bread with this. Real bread. Vrelisk did not know what bread was, but if Yuna was excited about it, he was sure it would be good. Dohan and 2 other crew members were helping her. They carried river clay in buckets made from large leaves. They mixed it with water and mud to make it soft. Then Yuna shaped it with her hands, building the oven layer by layer. The security officer had changed in the past 12 days. He smiled now sometimes. He talked more. He had learned to make fire, to catch fish, to clean and prepare meat for cooking. He said that learning these skills made him feel stronger, more capable, more alive. That evening, Yuna made an announcement. Tomorrow is day 13. We have survived almost 2 weeks on this planet. I think we should celebrate. Celebrate? Asked Holek. How? With a feast. A real feast. The best meal I've ever made. The crew looked at each other. A feast? In the middle of a survival situation? It seemed crazy. But then again, everything about their survival so far had seemed crazy. I will help, said Pelen. She had spent the past few days learning from Yuna. Just like Dawan, she could not catch fish or make fire, but she had learned to clean vegetables and prepare simple dishes. It made her feel useful. Me too, said Imsora. The communications officer had finally come out of her shell. She still did not talk much, but she smiled sometimes, and she always finished everything Yuna cooked. We will all help, said Captain Relisk. Tell us what to do. Yuna spent the whole night preparing. She did not sleep. There was too much to do. She had caught a large bird 3 days ago. It was bigger than any chicken back on Earth, with bright blue feathers and a long tail. She had kept it alive in a cage made of sticks, feeding it vegetables and clean water. Now it was time. She killed the bird quickly and cleanly. Her grandmother had taught her how. Fast and painless, respectful. The animal had given its life so they could eat. The least she could do was make its death quick. She cleaned the bird and prepared it for roasting. She stuffed it with herbs and vegetables. She rubbed it with salt and the oil from a nut she had found that tasted like butter. While the bird cooked slowly in her new oven, she made other things. She made dumplings. The dough was made from ground tubers, the roots she had found growing near the river. They were starchy and soft, perfect for making dough. She filled the dumplings with chopped vegetables and bits of smoked fish. She made soup. It had been cooking for 2 days, a rich broth made from fish bones and vegetable scraps. Nothing was wasted. Everything had a purpose. She made pancakes from a grain she had found growing wild in a sunny clearing. The grains were small and hard, but she had ground them between 2 flat stones until they became flour. And for dessert, she made something special. A pudding. She had found a tree that made sweet sap, like maple syrup. She had collected the sap in a jar and let it thicken. She mixed it with mashed fruit and cooked it until it became soft and creamy. The feast was ready at sunset. The crew gathered around the fire pit. Yuna had arranged everything on flat stones and large leaves. The roasted bird was in the center, golden brown and steaming. Around it were the dumplings, the pancakes, the side dishes. The soup in wooden bowls she had carved herself. This is beautiful, whispered Pelen. This is impossible, said Tolek. This is dinner, said Yuna. Let us eat. They ate. They ate until they could not eat any more. Then they rested and ate some more. The bird was perfect. The meat was tender and juicy, flavored with herbs and smoke. The dumplings were soft and savory, little packages of deliciousness. The soup warmed them from the inside. The pancakes were crispy on the outside and soft on the inside. And the pudding. The pudding was magical. Imsora took one bite and started to cry. Not sad crying. Happy crying. The kind of crying that comes when something touches your heart in a way you did not expect. It tastes like something my broodmother used to make, she said, when I was small, before I left home. I thought I would never taste anything like it again. Yuna sat next to her. What was it? A dessert. Made from the sap of a tree on my home planet. My godmother made it for special days. Birthdays, celebrations, good memories. Food is memory, said Yuna. It connects us to the people we love and the places we come from. Even when they are far away. Even when they are gone. And Sora looked at her with new eyes. You understand. I understand. They sat together in silence, eating pudding and remembering the people who had loved them. Around the fire, the crew talked and laughed. They told stories about their home planets, their families, their lives before the survey course. They learned things about each other that they had never known before. Relisk told them about his children, 4 young ones waiting for him back home. Tolek talked about the engineering school where he had studied, the friends he had made there. Pelen shared her dream of becoming a captain someday. They were not just crew members anymore. They were family, and it had all started with a human who refused to give up, who looked at a swamp and saw a kitchen, who looked at disaster and saw opportunity. That night, as the 2 small suns set and the strange stars came out, the crew of the Wandering Light felt something they had not felt since the crash. They felt grateful. Grateful to be alive. Grateful to be together. Grateful for the human who had saved them, not with weapons or technology, but with food and kindness and love. Yuna looked at them and smiled. Her grandmother would have been proud. Day 15. The sky was gray and cloudy. Rain had fallen during the night, soft and warm. The swamp was quiet except for the sounds of insects and birds. Yuna woke up early, as she always did. She started the fire and began preparing breakfast. Fish from the traps she had set the night before. Vegetables roasted over the coals. Pancakes made from her precious flour. The smell of cooking food woke the others. One by one, they came out of the ship and gathered around the fire. This had become their morning routine. Nobody remembered what it was like to wake up without the smell of Yuna's cooking. What is for breakfast? Asked Pelen, rubbing her eyes. Fish and pancakes, said Yuna, and some of the pickled vegetables. We should finish them today. Why today? Yuna looked up at the cloudy sky. The rescue ship will arrive today. We will not need them anymore. The crew went quiet. They had been waiting for this day since the crash. 15 days of survival on an unknown planet. They should be happy. They should be celebrating. But somehow, they felt something else too. Something like sadness. I will miss this place, said Sora quietly. Is that strange? No, said Doan. I feel the same. They ate breakfast together, like they had every morning for the past 2 weeks. They talked about small things. The weather. The funny noise the birds made. The way the swamp looked in the morning light. Nobody talked about leaving. Not yet. They wanted to hold on to this moment a little longer. The rescue ship arrived at midday dot. It came down through the clouds like a silver bird, sleek and powerful and completely out of place in the wild swamp. It landed in the clearing near the crash site, and its engines made the water ripple and the trees shake. A door opened, and aliens in clean uniforms walked out. They looked official and serious and very, very confused. Commander Doss was the first one down the ramp. He was tall and reptilian, with green scales and cold, yellow eyes. He was known throughout the survey corps as a strict officer who did not like surprises. He was about to get a very big surprise. Captain Relisk, he said, walking toward the crash site. We received your emergency beacon. We came as fast as we could. Where are your... He stopped. He stared. The crash site did not look like a crash site. It looked like a small village. There were structures made of mud and stone. There were racks of drying meat. There were storage pits full of food. There was a fire burning with something delicious cooking over it, and there were 12 crew members sitting around the fire, eating breakfast and looking healthier than they had any right to look. What is this? Commander Das asked. Captain Vrelisk stood up and wiped his mouth. His broken arm was almost healed. His uniform was dirty, but his eyes were bright and clear. Breakfast, Commander. Would you like some? Our human made extra. Your human? Yuna waved from her position by the fire. She was holding a spatula in one hand and a bowl of sauce in the other. Good morning, Commander. The fish is almost ready. It is really good today. The rain made the river run faster, so the fish are more active. Commander Das turned to his second officer, a small reptilian named Veth. Report, he demanded. Veth was checking his scanner with a troubled expression. Sir, the crew's vital signs are unusual. Unusual how? They have gained weight. Average increase of 3.2% body mass. Their nutrition levels are above normal. Their stress hormones are remarkably low for a survival situation. That is impossible. They have been stranded here for 15 days with minimal supplies. Yes, sir. And yet the data does not lie. Commander Das looked at the camp again. He looked at the piles of preserved food. He looked at the crew members with their full bellies and content faces. He looked at the human, who was now adding vegetables to a pan and humming a song. Explain, he said to Vrelisk. Now, Vrelisk smiled. It was a real smile, the kind that reached his eyes. 2 weeks ago, he had forgotten how to smile like that. It is simple, Commander. Our human fed us. Fed you? With what? Everything. Vrelisk gestured at the swamp around them. She looked at this planet and saw food everywhere. In the water, in the ground, in the trees. She caught it, she prepared it, she cooked it, and she fed us. 3 meals a day, plus snacks. Commander Das looked at Yuna again. She was a small human, not impressive looking at all. She looked tired and dirty and completely ordinary. But the evidence was impossible to deny. Human, he said. Come here. Yuna put down her spatula and walked over. She was not afraid of the commander. After 2 weeks of surviving on an unknown planet, she was not afraid of anything. Yes, Commander? How did you do this? How did you know what was safe to eat? Yuna thought about the question. I did not know, not really. I guessed. I tested. I used my senses. Smell, taste, texture. Humans have been doing this for a very long time. Our bodies know things that our minds have forgotten. And you were not afraid? I was very afraid. But I was more afraid of watching my crew starve to death. Fear is only useful if it pushes you to act, not if it makes you freeze. Commander Das was quiet for a long moment. Then he did something that surprised everyone. He laughed. It was a dry, rough sound, like rocks scraping together. But it was definitely a laugh. Humans, he said. You are impossible creatures. We get that a lot, said Yuna. The rescue operation began. The crew gathered their things and prepared to leave. But before they boarded the rescue ship, Yuna did one more thing. She packed food for the journey. Smoked meat wrapped in leaves. Pickled vegetables in sealed containers she had made from tree bark. Dried fish. A jar of the sweet tree sap. Enough food to feed 12 people for several more days. You do not need to bring that, said Commander Das. We have food. Synthesizers on the rescue ship. I know, said Yuna, but my crew has gotten used to real food. They should not have to go back to gray cubes, not yet. She handed out portions to each crew member. They took them with gratitude and held them close, like precious treasures. One by one, the crew boarded the rescue ship. But before they left, each one stopped to say something to Yuna. Pelen hugged her, which was awkward because she had too many limbs. Thank you, she said, for everything. You saved my life. Tolek shook her hand with 3 of his arms. I have learned more from you in 2 weeks than in 4 years of engineering school." Imsora said nothing. She just pressed her forehead against Yuna's forehead, which was her people's way of showing deep respect. Even Commander Doss stopped before Yuna. "I will be writing a report about this mission," he said. "What would you like me to say about you?" Yuna thought about it. "Say that I did my job. Say that I kept my crew alive. Say that humans are very good at surviving. I will say more than that." The commander's yellow eyes softened slightly. "I will say that every survey vessel should have a human on board, preferably one who cooks." The rescue ship rose into the sky and flew away from the swamp planet. Yuna watched through the window as the green sky and dark water grew smaller and smaller until they disappeared into the clouds. She was exhausted. Her hands were rough and calloused. Her body ached from 2 weeks of hard work. But she was also proud. Prouder than she had ever been. She had looked at disaster and found hope. She had looked at an unknown world and found food. She had looked at a scared, desperate crew and made them a family. Her grandmother would have been proud too. 6 months later, Park Yuna was promoted to Senior Environmental Specialist. Her new job was teaching other crews how to survive on unknown planets, how to find food, how to cook it, how to feed each other and keep hope alive. Her first student was Pelen. "Teach me everything," the young navigator said. "I want to feed people the way you fed us." Yuna smiled and handed her an apron. "First lesson," she said. "Never waste anything. Save every bone, every scrap. Use everything." Is that a human rule? It is my grandmother's rule, and she was never wrong. They began to cook together, human and alien, teacher and student. Outside the window, the stars shone bright and endless, full of unknown worlds waiting to be explored. And on every one of those worlds, there was food. You just had to know how to find it.